The medical frigate Mercy of Thal smelled like antiseptic and something vaguely floral that Marcus's human nose couldn't quite identify. Lieutenant Marcus Webb had been here 3 weeks recovering from injuries that should have killed him. Reactor breach, explosive decompression, the kind of accident that left engineers as debris rather than patients. The Thalaryn Healers Guild saved him. Specifically, his nurse Veyla saved him, with medical knowledge centuries ahead of human capabilities and hands that moved with practiced precision. She was checking his bandages again, her long ears angled forward in concentration, luminescent skin markings glowing softly in the medical bay's dim lighting. Marcus had learned to read her moods through those markings, brighter when she was focused, dimmer when tired. "You're healing well," she said in carefully accented standard. "Another week perhaps before discharge." Marcus noticed the braided cord around her wrist, something traditional he'd seen on other Thalaryn healers. "You know, with all the time we spend together, people might think we're married or something." He meant it as a joke, just filling silence with the kind of stupid comment that came from boredom and pain medication. Veyla went completely still. Her hands froze mid-motion, ears pinning flat against her skull in an expression Marcus had never seen. The air itself seemed to change. Then, so quietly he almost missed it, she whispered, "You're mine now." Before Marcus could ask what the hell that meant, she hurried from the room, leaving him very confused and suddenly very concerned about what he'd just said. The next morning, everything was different. Veyla entered wearing formal robes, intricate silver threading he'd never seen on medical staff. Her wrist cord was replaced by something more elaborate, and other Thalaryn healers stared at her with expressions ranging from shock to disapproval. "Veyla, what's going on?" She sat down heavily, her composure cracking. "What you said last night, do you understand what you did?" "I made a stupid joke about marriage." In Thalaryn culture, when a healer tends someone through life-threatening injury, a sacred bond forms, the keeper's trust. It's usually dissolved ceremonially when the patient recovers. Her hands twisted together. But if during healing, the patient acknowledges the bond as permanent partnership using specific ritual phrases, it becomes Thura, an unbreakable soul bond. Marriage in your terms. Marcus's stomach dropped, and I said, "The auto-translator rendered your words as the exact Thura invocation. When you mentioned marriage while I physically cared for you, you invoked the bond." Her voice was barely audible. My response, "You're mine now," was traditional acceptance. We are Thura bonded. It cannot be dissolved except by death. I was joking, I didn't know. Intent matters less than words in Thalaryn ritual law. Veyla looked at him with crystalline eyes full of fear. "The Healers Guild is convening to determine if I violated my oath by accepting. Thura between healer and patient is considered ethically questionable. And your people?" Marcus's communicator exploded with incoming calls. His captain's face appeared, expression somewhere between fury and disbelief. "Webb, please tell me you didn't actually marry an alien through a translator error." "It's complicated, sir. You uncomplicate it, now." But the Thalaryn senior healers were already arriving, and Marcus realized that uncomplicated wasn't going to be an option. The next weeks were a bureaucratic nightmare. Human diplomats tried explaining that Marcus couldn't have intended to invoke alien marriage rituals he'd never heard of. Thalaryn conservatives argued the Thura bond was mockery of sacred tradition and must be dissolved immediately. Marcus and Veyla were forced together for assessment, awkward meals, monitored conversations to determine if the bond could be ethically maintained. Marcus learned things he'd never known. Veyla was 28 standard years old, had studied healing since childhood, came from a family of prestigious healers. This incident could destroy her career before it truly began. "I didn't mean to accept," she admitted over barely touched food. "When you joked about marriage, something in me recognized truth beneath the humor. I responded before thinking about consequences." She met his eyes. "I developed." Affection for you, despite protocols, despite knowing I shouldn't. Marcus set down his fork carefully. I wasn't entirely joking either. I've been attracted to you since the first week. The joke was me testing whether you felt any of what I was feeling. Silence stretched between them. So we accidentally bound ourselves through half-genuine feelings and a translator error, Veyla said finally. Sounds about right. The Thalaryn Council can dissolve Thura through ritual requiring both parties to publicly renounce it. Her voice was flat, but doing so would shame me irreparably. I would be marked as someone who accepted and rejected soul bond, a stigma that follows forever. Marcus understood. Walking away would free them legally but destroy her professionally. What do you want to do? I don't know. This should have been carefully considered union, not result of your terrible joke and my instinctive response. Hey, my jokes are hilarious. Despite everything, she almost smiled. Then the assassination attempt happened. The extremist came from nowhere, plasma blade aimed at Marcus's chest. Veyla moved faster than Marcus thought possible, throwing herself between them. The blade caught her shoulder instead, and she went down hard. Marcus caught her, his hands, clumsy, human, lacking any real medical training, pressed against the wound trying to stop alien blood he didn't understand. Stay with me, he said, terror replacing every other emotion. Veyla, stay with me. Her eyes focused on his face. Ironic, she whispered, now you're the one caring for me. The irony wasn't lost on the senior healers either. As they stabilized Veyla, Marcus refused to leave her side despite orders from his captain. He learned basic Thalaryn healing techniques so he could help during her recovery. The role reversal, patient becoming caretaker, resonated deeply within Thalaryn cultural understanding. Senior healers who'd pushed for dissolution began reconsidering. Watching Marcus tend to Veyla with dedicated care despite his obvious lack of skill, something shifted in the political landscape. The investigation concluded with unprecedented ruling. Thura bond recognized as legitimate, but with 6-month trial period. Marcus and Veyla must live as bonded partners, fully integrating into each other's cultures. Then choose to formalize permanently or pursue dissolution. It satisfied no one but allowed both to save face. Marcus requested extended leave. Veyla transferred to cultural exchange program. The 6 months began. It was chaos. Marcus struggled with Thalaryn formality. Veyla found human casualness overwhelming. They fought about everything, temperature, food, communication styles that left both feeling misunderstood. There were moments when dissolution seemed inevitable, but there were also moments of unexpected harmony, when Marcus's jokes finally made Veyla laugh until she couldn't breathe, when she taught him healing meditation that helped his lingering pain, when they discovered that despite everything dividing them, they'd both chosen careers built on caring for others. The Thura bond that began as accident transformed into choice. Marcus met Veyla's family, traditional healers deeply skeptical of this human. He endured formal dinners, committed constant cultural faux pas, but also saw where Veyla's dedication came from. Veyla visited Earth, experiencing human chaos that both terrified and exhilarated her. Marcus's family hugged her despite knowing Thalaryn rarely touched casually, asked blunt questions that would be unthinkable rudeness in her culture. But underneath the chaos, unconditional acceptance. As the 6-month deadline approached, both faced a choice. The bond begun as joke and whisper had become real through shared struggle and slow discovery that meaningful connections often come from unexpected places. The formalization ceremony happened aboard the Mercy of Thal, hybrid of traditions, formal and casual, solemnity and laughter mixed impossibly. When asked if they chose to make Thura permanent, both answered without hesitation. Marcus joked afterward that he was probably the only human who'd gotten married by accidentally saying the right thing to his nurse. Veyla responded in perfect deadpan that he was also the only human stupid enough to joke about marriage while heavily medicated in an alien medical bay. Their laughter echoed through the ship, and somewhere in that sound was truth they'd both learned. Best partnerships aren't carefully planned, but the ones that begin with mistakes and become meaningful through the choice to stay. Years later, they worked together in joint human Thalaryn medical facility. Their Cathara bond had become symbol of cultural cooperation rather than scandal. Marcus loved telling their origin story to new students, how he married his nurse through translator error and terrible joke.